Okay, I would like to bring the Public Service Commission meeting to order. Secretary Burgess, are there any changes to the agenda today?
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. There's one change to the agenda. Item 161, case 10G0622, which is the appeal by Greater Binghamton Development, LLC, of the informal decision rendered in favor of New York State Electric Gas Corp. is over.
Okay, thank you. So our first item for discussion today is item 301, which is case 15E0126. It's Central Hudson's tariff on public street and highway lighting to move towards LED lighting. And Michael Ryder, who's a utility supervisor in the Office of Electric, Gas, and Water, will be presenting. And Kevin Mance, who's also a utility supervisor, will be here as well for questions. And Michael, I believe you're beginning?
Yes, I am.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Zilliman. Good morning, Commissioners. Item 301 addresses a tariff filing made by Central Hudson Gas and Electric Corporation to offer new company-owned and maintained LED street lighting options to its municipal customers. By way of background, Central Hudson currently offers energy-only service to street lighting customers who own and maintain their own street lighting facilities. Typically, for a municipality that wishes to take advantage of LED street lighting, the municipality would have to purchase from Central Hudson the existing street lighting facilities in its locality, purchase new LED lighting facilities, then replace the existing streetlights with the LED streetlights, and then take energy-only service from the company. Item 301 addresses a new option for municipal customers in Central Hudson service territory. Instead of having to purchase, replace, and then maintain their streetlights, municipalities will now have the option to take LED street lighting service from the company and receive the benefits that LED lighting technology provides. The main benefits are in the form of reduced energy consumption and energy bill savings. According to a NYSERDA report issued late last year, LED streetlights may use 45 to 75% less energy than existing high-pressure sodium lights. The report went on to state that savings may even be greater when LED streetlights are replacing mercury vapor or incandescent fixtures. In this case, if all of Central Hudson's street lighting fixtures were replaced by LED lights, total annual customer bill savings are estimated to be approximately $1.3 million. As you know, LED lighting technology continues to advance and manufacturers' prices continue to come down. By doing its homework early on in this process, Central Hudson was able to secure prices for LED lighting that translate into fixture charges that are in the same range as, or in most cases lower than, its current inventory of street lighting fixtures. Coupled with the energy savings LED lights provide, each of the 4 fixtures that the company is proposing to offer will result in annual savings for customers when compared to their current lighting fixtures. In addition to offering LED lighting options that will provide customers with annual savings, the item before you addresses the conversion rate of changing out fixtures with LED fixtures. Under its current tariff, Central Hudson is required to replace no more than 5% of its company-owned lights in any municipality in any year. At this rate, full conversion to LED lighting would take 20 years. The company is now proposing a substantial increase to its existing conversion rate. Specifically, the company is proposing to replace, on an annual basis, no less than 10% of the company-owned fixtures in any municipality and no less than 20% in its entire service territory. Several municipalities commented on the company's filing and recommend a slightly more aggressive annual conversion rate of no less than 15% in any given municipality and no less than 25% in the company's service territory. Because of the benefits the company's LED options will afford customers, the item before you adopts the slightly more aggressive conversion rate of no less than 15% and no less than 25%. In effect, all municipalities in Central Hudson service territory could have company-owned and maintained LED fixtures within 4 years. Of course, that assumes a 100% adoption rate. Staff believes the benefits of LED lighting support this potentially aggressive conversion rate. Of course, a municipality may request that less than 15% of its streetlights be replaced, or the total requested LED conversions may result in less than 25% of the company's streetlights. Therefore, this item also directs the company to clarify its tariff language to allow for such occurrences. With the changeout of existing street lighting assets, there is the issue of recovering the undepreciated value of the existing assets. The company's total undepreciated value of its street lighting assets is roughly $3 million. Staff determined that if the company's entire stock of streetlights were replaced with LED lights, the associated savings of the new LED fixtures would offset the undepreciated value in just over 2.5 years. That means that on average, a municipal customer would see a payback from changing over to LED lighting in less than 3 years. Because of this short payback period, staff recommends that the undepreciated value of the company's current assets not be socialized among all Central Hudson's customers, but rather be the responsibility of the requesting customer. It is important to understand that the circumstances that exist in this case and for Central Hudson may not exist at the other New York State utilities. Therefore, staff believes that the issue of cost recovery of undepreciated assets be considered in future proceedings on a case-by-case basis. With the approval of Item 301, Central Hudson will be the first New York State utility to offer company-owned and maintained LED street lighting options that will provide both energy and bill savings for its customers. In addition to Central Hudson, staff has been working with the other New York State utilities to address the two most significant barriers to offering economic LED lighting options. The first being the initial capital investment of LED technology, which, as I mentioned earlier, continues to come down, and the second being the undepreciated value of the existing assets. In the joint proposal recently filed in the Orange and Rockland rate case, O&R committed to re-examine the cost of its existing LED options and offer additional LED street lighting options. In the ongoing NYSEG and RG&E rate cases, which are currently in the discovery phase of the proceeding, staff is analyzing the company's proposal to provide company-owned and maintained LED options. As for National Grid, staff and the company will be meeting by month's end to further discuss National Grid's efforts to develop cost-effective LED options for its customers. And Con Edison is unique in the sense that it does not own any street lighting infrastructure, thus its street lighting customers take energy-only service and are free to install LED lighting technology if they so choose. So in recap, in the coming months, staff will continue to work with utilities and other parties, such as the Green Bank, in various commission proceedings to develop solutions that overcome the barriers we have experienced that inhibit the adoption of widespread LED street lighting on a statewide basis. In closing, Item 301 presents a win for customers in the form of a lower electric bills, a win for the company in the form of providing new services that are desired by its customers, and a win for the environment in the form of reduced energy consumption. Kevin and I will now be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael, and nice job and well said. So it's hard to sort of add to this. From my perspective, I think this is a great thing. I'm really appreciative of Central Hudson of stepping forward and offering this as option. Clearly, there's the issue in terms of conversion to LED lighting. It's hard to argue against it. I know that generally when you look at municipalities that have saved or converted to LED, it's on the order of a 60% savings in their street lighting bill, which tends to be one of the highest bills for municipalities. So not only is this of a great benefit to municipalities as ratepayers, it's great benefit to the taxpayers of the municipalities who end up paying those energy bills through taxes. So it's hard to find anything wrong with looking for ways to save people money and reduce carbon footprint. So I am very appreciative of us having this in front of us. I also know that the issue of conversion to LED lighting is an issue of a lot of concern to a lot of municipalities, and that the barriers have been around the capital outlay that's been required as well as the additional cost of the LED lights. It appears that through good procurement, we've been able to tackle one of those issues, and now we have lights that are comparable or even cheaper than traditional lighting. The next issue really is the depreciation issue, and as you note in Central Hudson's case, that's not really an issue, and that the municipalities who enter into this program are going to be able to realize savings. I think it's within a 2.5-year period, which is fantastic and is achievable for most. I think one of the things that you've identified both, sorry, I'm suffering from a cold, both in briefings and today, is the fact that we really would like to see this across the state. And there are a number of cities who are anxious to get this in, and I'm glad that we're looking at it in Orange and Rockland and NYSEG and working with GRID. I think to the extent that the issue does become the question of how to handle the undepreciated assets, there are ways that we can address it, and I'll be very much looking forward to hearing back from staff on the mechanisms that you think can be put into place so that we can get all the cities in the state who want to convert to LED an opportunity to do it in a way that's affordable to them. So I'm very pleased to move on Central Hudson. I think we need to continue the good work. I know that staff worked hard with the company and that NYSERDA was also involved in this, and that we'll continue also to work with NYSERDA as this technology changes to make sure we stay current on the opportunities. So with that, I'm prepared to vote on the item and would like to know if anyone has any further questions or comments. Mr. Sayre.
Just a brief comment. This is a very good thing and a good news item, and I hope that all cities in the state will start looking at this option. And at the risk of flooding the utilities with calls, I think if they're interested in moving forward, they ought to contact the utilities. And to the extent that progress is not being made, we have staff that can knock heads together and make proposals to the commission and make this happen, which is a thing that should happen. So I commend staff for a great result in this case and look forward to a number of additional ones.
Thank you. Commissioner Berman?
Thank you. I'm very supportive of this item. Happy for Central Hudson in terms of what they've done and the outreach that they've done with their community on this issue. It is, for me, a good news item as well. When I look at it, we've been talking, street lighting is not necessarily, on everyone's mind, but it's a very important issue to address and to tackle, not only for the safety reason of having quality working street lights, but because it can be an item that significantly reduces the energy costs. And we've been talking about this in the state and the nation for many years. I do want to also commend NYSERDA. In December 2014, they issued a very comprehensive report, and then they updated it in January of 2015. And I think for me, when I look at it, I look at this as an opportunity. Other states have done it in some fashion and are still going through the challenges. And what we have here is we have a significant number of streetlights in New York. I think the highest across the country. So when I look to that in terms of what we're doing, it's very important that we do tackle this holistically and collaboratively so that we make sure that we don't do it in isolation. And so I appreciated both Kevin and Michael talking about the specific utilities and what the outreach is. I think it's also very important that we make sure that we do stakeholder outreach and engagement. I know DEC has some dedicated staff dealing with street lighting issues. NYSERDA does. Obviously, we have a LED street lighting team here. We have a number of pending petitions that address street lighting that we should also make sure that the petitioners are aware of what we are or aren't doing. And to the extent that we look at it and provide the different options. And I just want to read one thing that I think from all of what was in the NYSERDA report really honed in for me is on page 20, and I won't read the whole page. It said, the barriers to the street lighting energy efficiency opportunity are regulatory, technical, and financial. Each barrier will require a specific approach to be addressed successfully. Of these barriers, the most significant is the regulatory barrier, the lack of rate tariffs or financially attractive rates for LED street lighting, especially with utility-owned streetlights. For many jurisdictions in New York State, these regulatory barriers must be addressed before the jurisdiction will face the technical and financial barriers. And that, for me, is exactly what we're trying to do, and I look forward to sort of the next steps. The one question I do have is in terms of making sure that we are on the same page from the process perspective. You talked about O&R, you talked about NYSEG in the rate case, and when we look to National Grid, just can you clarify for me what the process is for that?
We would expect that to be the same process that was employed here with Central Hudson. The company would make a tariff filing.
Okay.
It would be SAPid, and we would receive public comment on that, and then there would be a commission decision.
Okay. It'll be important also, I think, just like with the way Central Hudson approached it, they had a lot of outreach with the specific municipalities to make sure that there are a variety of options, because it isn't a one-size-fits-all. And so that's important to me that we make sure we do that as well. But I appreciate all the work that is being done and the future work that will be done, and it looks like we're trying to right now tackle the regulatory and also understanding that there are technical and financial barriers too that are part of the mix, and I look forward to that. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Akinpora.
Well, all good news is always good. And I think here again, we're taking another step, and Central Hudson has jumped into the 21st century. As we know, consumers have a lot of questions, as if when they walk into Home Depot, they see all these different lights, and they're not quite sure of which is the best one for them. So the street lighting issue also points to an area where people will understand a little bit more about some of the new technology that is available to them. Now, usually in municipalities, a lot of them, particularly on Long Island, they create street lighting districts. And I'm wondering, a lot of times with that comes federal money. So how can possibly federal money help some of this along in these municipalities?
So I think that's a good question. Back in 2010, we had federal money from the ARRA, was it the American Reinvestment Recovery Act, and that went to certain some municipalities that wanted to upgrade their lighting to LED lighting, so that those finances or that money was assisting them in actually purchasing the street lighting facilities from the utility and then being able to convert. So that there would be an opportunity in that regard.
Okay, that's a good thing. I'm prepared to vote on this item again as something that's positive, and appreciate all the work that the staff has done, and look forward to more of these cases, as I'm sure they will be coming in the next year.
Thank you. I think to follow up on Commissioner Akinpora's comment would be great, because we do know that while Central Hudson is in a good position relative to the undepreciated asset base, that's not going to be the same for other utilities. So to the extent we can look at both federal funding as well as a state program, we should do everything we can to get as many utilities as quickly, or municipalities as quickly as we can onto these programs. So it'd be good to follow up and see what else might be available. So I'm glad you raised that. With that, and if no further comments, why don't we move to a vote? So all those in favor of the recommendations to authorize Central Hudson Gas and Electric Corporation to adopt the additional LED lighting options with the modifications as described by Mr. Ryder, please indicate by saying aye.
And I'm concurring. I'm very much in support and focused on addressing the regulatory barriers as quickly as we can.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to accept that as all in favor. And there being no opposition, the recommendations are adopted. Thank you. Good. Thank you. Great job, Kevin.
I should probably.
Well, Mike knows he did a great job, but Kevin was really good. Okay, the next item up is item 302, which is case 14E0270, and it's the petition regarding the Grenade Nuclear Power Plant to examine a proposal for continuing operation. It's actually to examine a petition for a temporary rate surcharge. And today we're going to have Doris Stout, who's our Director of Accounting, Audits, and Finance, is going to introduce the item, and Administrative Law Judge Ashley Marino will be presenting the details. Doris, please begin. Thank you. Welcome, both of you.
Good morning, Chair Zibelman and Commissioners. The question before the Commission today in item 302 is whether or not to institute a temporary rate surcharge for RG&E to begin recovering the costs associated with its Reliability Support Services Agreement, or RSSA, between itself and the RE Gnay Power Plant, LLC, or Gnay. The Commission isn't often faced with having to make a decision to institute temporary rates. The last I recall was Niagara Mohawk in 1996. The standards to do so are very high, and we don't take a request of this nature lightly. The Commission doesn't tend to allow temporary rates unless it is faced with some extraordinary circumstances. For example, when a utility cannot access capital markets to raise funds to make investments in its systems and maintain safe and reliable service. In this case, we are faced with some very extraordinary circumstances. If the Commission does nothing, the costs associated with the RSSA, if later approved, could build to the point of potentially being more than a 20% increase in delivery rates, reflecting recovery of both the base costs of the RSSA plus the deferred collection amounts, or the compression effect. In this case, RG&E requests to immediately institute a surcharge to begin to offset these costs, address compression, and to improve its cash flow. However, RG&E has more than $150 million in credits, which it owes its ratepayers, that other parties want to use to offset these costs. And this balance of credits could be higher depending on how credits are addressed in the rate filing. Using too many of the available credits could adversely affect the company's credit metrics. The long-term reliability solution for the Rochester area will eventually add an estimated 5.2% to delivery rates. Therefore, to balance all of the parties' interests, begin providing cash flow relief to RG&E, moderate the rate shock, and smooth rate impacts for customers in the long run, we are recommending that a temporary surcharge be set at a level equal to the estimated cost of the reliability solution in the long run. I'm going to turn it over now to Judge Marino to go through some more details of the case record.
Thank you, Doris. Thank you. So I'm going to give a little bit of a background and put this in context as well. In November, you found that Gnay is needed for reliability and stated that it may not cease operations. And you also instructed RG&E to negotiate that RSSA. RG&E submitted the signed RSSA and petition for its approval in February. The RSSA is drafted as effective April 1st, 2015, and would conclude September 30th, 2018. During the term of the RSSA, RG&E plans to undertake several capital projects, including the Gnay Retirement Transmission Alternative, or GRTA, to address constraints on its system. Review of the RSSA is currently undergoing review in this docket. In June, RG&E filed a petition for temporary rates, citing mounting costs owed to Gnay pursuant to the RSSA, and its concern about the impacts on rates to its customers if those costs were later collected over a shorter period of time, the compression effect, as Doris mentioned. In consideration of the petition, an evidentiary hearing was held on July 2nd, and parties submitted briefs arguing their positions. The record reflects estimates of amounts that RG&E would owe Gannett pursuant to the terms of the RSSA, and if no decision is reached prior to December 31st, 2015, that amount may reach $56.9 million. As Doris described, the recommendation before you today represents a balance between the needs of customers and the company. Advisory staff recommends the institution of a temporary rate surcharge beginning on September 1st, but at a lower monetary level than what was proposed by RG&E. The draft order recommends adoption of staff's proposal to set a temporary rate surcharge at the amount equal to the estimated first full-year revenue requirement for the GRTA, the project designed to address RG&E's system constraints. The surcharge would allow RG&E to begin to collect costs associated with the reliability support provided by Gannett, but would also set the surcharge at a lower fixed amount that would temper both rate shock and volatility to customers. Advisory staff believes that it is appropriate to set the surcharge at the cost level associated with the GRTA because it represents the long-term reliability solution if the Gannett facility were no longer operational. However, while the surcharge would begin to collect some of the costs associated with the proposed RSSA, setting the surcharge at the GRTA level would not address all costs. The surcharge addresses costs on a going-forward basis, but would not address costs incurred through August 31st, nor the difference between the costs proposed in the RSSA and the GRTA level. The draft order before you takes no action on those costs today. However, there is language in the draft order that acknowledges that RG&E has a significant amount of customer credits on its books that may be applied to offset those credits. Those are the credits that Doris mentioned earlier that are at a level above $150 million. Such application would be appropriate in this instance since customer credits represent a one-time benefit to customers and the RSSA represents a one-time cost. In sum, advisory staff recommends establishing a temporary rate surcharge at the estimated first full-year revenue requirement level for the GRTA. We believe that this recommendation balances the interests of RG&E and its customers by allowing RG&E to commence collection of funds to pay for the reliability services to the Rochester area while protecting customers by setting the temporary rate surcharge at a lower and stable rate that avoids both rate shock and volatility. It also bears reminder that the surcharge would be subject to refund. That concludes my presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, both Doris and Ashley. Obviously, for this commission, and the reason we agreed to allow RG&E to enter into the RSSA last year was because reliability is paramount, and it's I think not at this point beyond anyone's consideration that the plant will be needed, and based on studies in 2015. And again in 2018, and that because it's a nuclear power plant, it certainly can't be mothballed and brought back. And so we need the plant for the duration in order to maintain the reliability of the system. So this does present the Commission with a challenge because none of us like to increase rates to consumers, but at the same time we have obviously the obligation to be compensatory for utilities who have now, in the case of RG&E, has to pay the contract for Gannett during the pendency of its building its transmission alternative, the GRTA, fondly known as GRETA, within Agency 3, which I think is a nice humanizing effect on transmission. But so I think that what the staff has proposed here today is really an elegant solution to a difficult issue, as Doris pointed out, and I asked her to give us that reference. This is very unusual for this the Commission to put in temporary rates. And it is an unusual situation because we don't want to be in a position when we know that RG&E has a contractual obligation to have the compression effect and start, on top of the cost itself, start collecting interest charges, which actually then increases the burden to consumers. And I think that, when I reviewed the recommendation, I thought it made a huge amount of sense to say, well, let's set the level of the surcharge at the expected level of the transmission replacement, because that's a cost we know will be a long-term cost for the company to incur, and that we do then have the credits as we need them in the future to deal with the delta between that level and the full RSSA amount. So while it does not go as far as some of the commenters want, I think it sets the fair level of ensuring, which is our concern, is avoiding rate shock and avoiding volatile rates, making it compensatory for the company, using some of the credits, and then potentially some others will be saved for the utilities rate case. And so for that, I think it's a great solution for a challenging issue. And I intend to vote for it. So thank you. I have no further questions or comments. But does anyone else have anything to say? Commissioner Sarah?
I would echo the chair's comments entirely. This isn't a question of whether nuclear is good or bad. It's not even a question of whether the RSSA is just, fair, and reasonable. It's simply a question of how to spread out the impact of the RSSA if we approve it, to avoid the rate shock on one hand and the potential damage to the utility's cash flow and credit standing on the other hand. If we approve it, we'll have some money in the bank toward its cost. If we disapprove it, these rates are subject to refund. So this is exactly the kind of balance that, as a commission, we're charged to make in the public interest by statute. And I support the balance that has been struck here in this proposed order.
I just have two questions. The first is, what's the next step in the process? Assuming we approve this here today.
Okay, there are requirements in the order for the company to provide the outstanding balance as to August 31st, as far as the surcharge goes, and to file the appropriate tariff leaves to begin to collect the surcharge amount if you were to approve it. Are you also asking for the next steps in the merits of the RSSA? Yep. In that case, right now, we do not have a schedule for moving forward to have staff and intervenor testimony filed or an evidentiary hearing, but those would be the next steps in the process to consider that and to build the record to bring before you.
Okay, and when we talk about, and this I think is a question for Doris, when we talk about customer refunds, we're not talking about customers actually getting, a check or a credit on their bill per se.
That's correct. So, I'm sorry, Doris. So the next opportunity, if ultimately the Commission makes a different determination when the RSSA is considered, when it comes back to you, you would have the opportunity at that point to determine how to pass it back to customers, or it could be done in the context of the rate case. And Doris, if you have anything to add as well to that.
No, that's a good answer.
And during that process, that would be also, people would be able to submit their comments on how they determine how they think that we should do that.
They certainly could. I would anticipate probably that members of the public may not necessarily have a specific comment to that. They'd certainly be welcome to make it. Probably parties more than individual customers would make recommendations on that front.
Okay, great. Thank you. I have no more questions. I'm going to have a concurring statement.
Okay. Do you want to make that now?
I think I'll do it for the vote.
Okay. Commissioner Kapoor?
I don't have any questions, but I agree with what's been said. Always trying to find the right balance is never easy in this specific case. And as Doris said, you haven't seen one like this in a very long time. Hope we don't see one again in another very long time. But again, as the chair stated, it's a matter of being fair. And so I think we've come to a very fair order here. And reliability is, as the chair said again, paramount to our responsibility as a commission. So I will be voting in favor of this matter.
Before I call the vote, I did want to note another piece, which is we've stated this a few times, and I'd like to state this again for the record. I mean, this situation we're in is because of a power plant that is unable to sustain its basically its business in the market because of the way prices have moderated in the wholesale market. One of the things that the staff is working on with the utilities, and I think it's going to be just incumbent upon us to look at, is where these situations may arise in the future so that we can avoid. I don't think anyone likes these contracts where, in fact, we can't afford to allow a generation plant who might want to retire because we need it for reliability. And while that's not been a historically an issue, it's become an issue for us, and I think the fact that we are looking to tackle this with the resource planning only tells me we need to, again, redouble our efforts and make sure we're thinking about that and looking at the transmission system moving forward so that we're not forcing consumers to essentially pay these payments if, in fact, there was a more economical transmission solution. So I think it's unfortunate we're in this situation, but again, as I said before, I believe that we're dealing with it in the most pragmatic and fair way. And we'll have to wait till the next stage, which I believe, in addition to the processes, this is under negotiations in Washington at the FERC, and so we'll see this contract at the completion of those negotiations and when the process is back in front of us. But in the meantime, this is a way, I think, of avoiding additional costs in the future. With that, I'm ready to move to the vote. So all those in favor of the petition to approve the establishment of a temporary surcharge for Rochester Gas and Electric for collection of revenues, subject to refund to offset the potential costs of the Reliability Support Services Agreement between RG&E and the Ginna Power Plant, if the RSA is ultimately approved by the Commission as described, please indicate by saying aye.
And I'm agreeing in a concurring statement. Ginna Nuclear Power Plant is an important asset in our state's generation fleet and positively contributes to our overall state grid reliability. In fact, the New York State ISO found it was currently needed for reliability, and if we do not act on this petition today, compression costs will continue to accrue, which may exacerbate the problem. Therefore, we must continue to move forward in order to resolve the remaining issues. This is a unique situation, and the future landscape is still uncertain, especially at the federal level. So I'm very focused on what this means going forward and the next steps on this. Thank you.
Okay. I believe most of that is also summarized in the order, so I'm going to accept that as a concurrence and agreement. So all those hearing no opposition, there being no opposition, recommendations are adopted. So thank you. And thanks also to the team. I know that's been working on this, and both here and at 888 in Washington. So I'm going to move to the consent agenda. Do any of the commissioners wish to recuse or abstain from any matters on the consent agenda? Are there any comments or questions on the consent agenda? And that, all those in favor of the recommendations on the consent agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing no opposition, there being none, the recommendations are adopted. Secretary Burgess, is there anything else before us today?
There's nothing else before you today. The next commission meeting is September 17th in Albany.
Great, thank you, and I wish everyone a good rest of your summer. Thank you.